Alright, welcome back everybody to Islebound, how to play. So, we're still talking about the Isles in this video. We still have lots of Isles to go over and talk about. So, let's get started. If you're going to visit the Isle of Zillim, you are going to obviously have to pay a coin to visit it as the tax. Then, you can choose either to, that's right. This is to acquire books. So here in Zillim, if you want to acquire a book here at Zillim, you have to pay a fish or a wood in order to obtain a book. Okay? So let's just get out a fish and a wood as a demonstration. Here we go. Okay. So, I could, for instance, pay the fish in order to obtain the book. That's what that is going to do for this isle. When you visit Zillim, you can pay a fish for a book, and you can also pay a wood for a book. However, there is something else that happens besides that. You are going to have to exhaust a crew member as well as pay one of these two in order to get a book. And then you're going to have to do that each time. So if you want more than one book, you're going to have to do a fish or a wood plus another crew member. But that's basically what's going to happen if you visit Zillim. So that's what you get when you visit Zillim. Okay, now, let's talk about Borsham here. Okay, so Borsham is, well, you're gonna have to pay a coin in order to visit Borsham. That's all you have to pay for just to simply visit it. But if you want these pirate cards or these sea serpent cards, okay, so if you want a pirate, you're going to have to pay a wood. And you have to have a certain amount of crew members alert as well. So this won't work if your crew members are exhausted, but if I had 2 crew members who weren't exhausted, I could obtain a maximum of 2 of these max. So I could, for instance, I could get 2 pirates for the price of 2 wood, is basically what that means. I will pay 2 wood, because I have 2 crew members alert, I'll pay 2 wood for 2 pirates. And that's what I would get. I would get these to my supply. Okay? Now, if you want a sea serpent, you have to pay 2 wood, plus you have to pay, well, you would have to pay 1 wood and 1 coin in order to obtain a sea serpent. You would also have to obviously have a crew member who's awake and alert to do so. And most likely you would, when visiting Borsham, you would have somebody alert and awake. Otherwise, you would have to visit an isle that obviously has a bed on it. But if you had, for instance, 2 crew members alert and awake, you could pay an additional coin and an additional wood for another sea serpent. So that's the second way you're going to acquire sea serpents. That's the second way you can do it. You can get sea serpents at Sun's Rest, and you can also get sea serpents by visiting Borsham, or attacking Borsham, or using diplomacy at Borsham. Same thing with Sun's Rest. Obviously, this one has to be diplomacy, though. So if you're using diplomacy, or you simply own it, that's another awesome benefit, is if you would own an island, and you can just simply visit it, and you don't have to pay the tax because it's under your control. So that's really cool. So that's another benefit to actually having an isle under your control, is you don't have to worry about paying the tax anymore. Now here we have the Rat's Nest. When you visit the Rat's Nest, you'll have to not just simply pay a coin, but you're going to have to exhaust a crew member that has that symbol, the administrative symbol above their head. They would have to be exhausted, meaning you'd also have to have a crew member who has that symbol not exhausted already. If you couldn't do that, obviously you couldn't visit this isle. So you would have to still have a crew member that has this symbol above their head who's alert and ready to go in order to pay the tax to come here to the Rat Nest. This isle here known as Rat Nest. But then, assuming you successfully are able to visit the Rat Nest, you would immediately get 2 pirates. You don't have to pay anything for the pirates, which is nice. So that's an easy way of getting pirates. This is probably the easiest way you're going to get pirates, because you get 2 of them and you don't have to pay anything to get these 2 pirates. But then you're also going to get +1 wood per worker or crew member who has the hand symbol above their head. So if you have at least 1 of those crew members in your ship that's not exhausted, you're going to at least get 1 wood. If you have none, then you get nothing at all. Or if the one you have that has the hand above his head is currently exhausted, well, you're not going to get any wood either. So it has to be 1 per crew member that's going to have the hand above their head in order to acquire. So if you have more than 1, and you can get more workers with hand symbols on them by going to other isles and getting more crew members, then you could possibly get a few wood as well as a couple of pirates for your troubles simply visiting the isle known as Rat Nest. So that's 6 isles that we've gone over. We still have at least 6 more to go over, not including the 4 starting ports. Okay, so here we have Rockslide. And remember, I did a demonstration of how Rockslide works, but let's just quickly go over it again. When you visit Rockslide, you're going to pay a coin token, and you're also going to have to exhaust a crew member with that symbol, the administrative symbol. So you'd have to have that crew member, obviously, aboard who's not exhausted to pay the tax to visit this isle. But you also get, for visiting the isle, you also get a book, and you also get 1 extra renown. That's what you're going to get for Rockslide. Pretty easy. Here we have Fell's Garden. This one you just pay a coin token to visit the isle. But by visiting the isle, it has a bed, or it has an inn, if you will. So all your crew members who are currently exhausted will therefore then be able to get enough sleep, and they are back and ready and active once again. But by visiting this isle here, you're also going to get something else we haven't really talked about. So let me show you the board. You'll notice it has a cube, and it has this little symbol above the cube as well. So here on the bottom of this board, this is the influence track. This is what you're going to need if you're going to use diplomacy to take over an isle. Okay? Now, if you're playing with only 2 players, you're going to have to at least cover this first one here with a colored cube you're not playing with, so maybe red, for instance. But as you acquire influence, for instance, this isle is actually going to give you 1 influence. So if this is the first time you've gotten influence, and you're visiting this isle for the first time too, for that matter, you're going to put your cube here to indicate you have 1 influence. If you want more influence, you're going to have to either complete events or come back here to Fell's Garden in order to get more influence. And you'll always do it from left to right. Okay? Now, other players will probably try to get more influence too, so maybe they'll put that there. Maybe you'll put that there, and ooh, yellow is the first one that gets 3 influence. Now, when you use diplomacy, we will talk about this further. Okay, we'll talk about this track further when we talk about diplomacy, how that's all going to work. Okay, because there's still lots to talk about for diplomacy, and there's still a lot more to talk about for attacking. So, but that's what you're going to get for visiting the island. You're going to get 1 additional influence for visiting the isle. So that's how Fell's Garden is going to work. Now up here we have the Groto. This one's going to cost you a coin to visit the Groto. And then after you've paid the tax, you're going to immediately get 4 fish. You're probably saying, wow, that's a lot of fish. You're going to get 4 fish, but you're going to get more maybe, because you're also going to get 1 additional fish per crew member that has the hand symbol above their head. So assuming, of course, your worker is not, sound asleep in your hold of the ship, exhausted from something done earlier, you're going to get some more fish. Maybe more than 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, who knows? But you're at least going to get 4 fish for visiting the Groto. And that's how the Groto works. Pretty simple. Okay, now let's continue on. We'll save this one for last because it's the most complex. Okay, so here we have Morlem, and you can kind of see that the town is almost sort of built off of parts of destroyed ships, possibly. Okay, so here on Morlem, you're going to first have to pay for the tax. You're going to have to exhaust a crew member. You don't have to choose any particular crew member. It can be anyone you want, but it has to be a crew member from your ship. Obviously, you have to exhaust one of them for visiting Morlem. And then you still have to pay a coin token as well for visiting Morlem. Now, when you visit Morlem and have a successful visit, you automatically get one more crew member of your choice. And if you choose the first one, like, for instance, the lizard guy is still the first one here. If you chose him, you wouldn't have to pay anything. You would just automatically get him. Now, of course, if you decided you wanted the fish folk, you're going to be paying a coin token to get the fish folk because he's still sitting on the board with the coin above his head. But you'd get a crew member at least, and you might get a free one, depending on which one you want. And then you also get one more renown. And so you'd get to put your cube token on the renown track again. Or maybe you already have one there, so it just goes up to the next number. So that's what's going to happen when you visit Morlem. Then we have I'm just going by what I think how it's pronounced. I think it's pronounced Grenell, but it could be Grenile or something like that. But I think it's or Greenile or Graynile. I don't know, but I'm just going to call it Grenile or Grenell. Sorry. So here at Grenell, you'll pay a coin token to visit this isle. Then you're going to get 2 wood automatically. So you just get 2 extra wood, which is nice. And then you'll get 1 additional wood per crew member that has the hand symbol who isn't exhausted on your ship. So that's pretty simple and easy. Now, here we have Stratic. When you visit Stratic, you're going to have to pay a coin token, and you're also going to have a crew member that has the administrative symbol above their head and who also isn't exhausted. And then you're going to have to exhaust that crew member. Then you get to complete this action here, or this visitation type action, which has the hammer on it, which means now you can build a building, okay? Now remember, the buildings you have access to, you're only going to have access to 5 at a time. But in order to build a building, you're going to have the resources to build it. So you'd have to have 2 wood and 2 fish for this one. This one you'd also have to have 2 wood and 2 fish. This one, you'd have to have 7 fish in order to acquire for the market. 3 wood, 2 fish for the bank. And there's even some cheap ones. This one, you only need 1 wood in order to build it. But if you can't build a building because you don't have enough resources to build what's currently available, then obviously visiting this isle is a bad idea because you've wasted your turn visiting the isle because you couldn't do anything anyway. So that's something to note. If you're going to visit Stratic, unless you're taking the hunt for treasure action, you should make sure you have a building that you can build because you have enough resources to do so. But that's how Stratic is going to work, and that's the only isle that you can go to where you can build a building rather than just simply buy a building. And so, for instance, remember, if you came to Stratic, you took your turn here, you were able to build a building, but you still had money, you could still purchase a building as well and you basically get 2 buildings on the same turn. One you built and the other one you bought. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So that's something that you can do. Okay, now we've explained the main isles that you will visit a lot. However, just because a port is occupied by another player or by yourself doesn't mean you shouldn't visit it at least once in a while. So let's talk about the ports now. Okay? Now, if you're playing with 2 players, that means 2 of these ports will be available to just simply visit because they won't be controlled by another player. Okay? But right now, Marhaven is technically controlled by me. So if I came to Marhaven, I wouldn't have to pay anything. I get to come here for free because it's my port. It's my isle. If Manta was to come here with his ship, he would have to pay me the coin to visit Marhaven. And if nobody owned it, the port, if nobody owned it, then you would just pay the coin token to the treasure map. Now, when you visit Marhaven, one thing they all have in common. All 4 of the ports have one thing in common. When you visit a port, which is a corner aisle, if you will, everybody gets to basically rest all of their exhausted crew members. Okay? Now, I mentioned that sometimes a crew member can get injured, and that's a possibility. So if you have an injured crew member and you visit an aisle or one of the port towns that have a bed, then you actually can't move that injured crew member to the deck where they're all going to be ready and active. But you do get to move injured crew members to the exhausted spot. So you get to flip them over, but they will stay exhausted until the next time you visit an aisle that will have a bed on it. So basically, it's going to take 2 separate turns to get injured crew members back into active service, if you will. So that's something all ports will have in common, is the bed. But then Marhaven, if you visit Marhaven, you're going to get a pirate. Okay? So maybe coming here is a good idea because you don't have any money, and this is a port you control anyway, so you don't have to worry about it because you own it. But you need to, obviously give some of your crew members some shore leave. And you also get a pirate for visiting Marhaven as well. So that's a benefit to visiting Marhaven. Pretty simple little benefit, but it can come in handy at times when you're a very poor, because there'll be times when you will be poor and you will definitely be needing some money. Okay, so here we have Chundrake. This isle is actually an isle that will get visited at least a couple of times by every player throughout the course of the game, because this is the only place you can trade in books for renown. And remember, it's got a bed, so everybody can just rest on the bed, like normal. So for every book you have, you're going to get 2 renown. So if you have 2 books, you're going to get 4 renown. If you have more than 2 books, if you have 3 books, you're going to get 6, etc., etc. But that's basically what this isle is good for. And so that means each player is going to want to take advantage of this isle. So that means the player who owns it is going to obviously have a benefit of getting some extra coins every now and then, because players are going to want to come here to get more renown by trading in books that they may no longer need, because they don't need to buy buildings that require you to have a certain amount of books or something like that. Especially at the end of the game, when you don't think you're going to be buying any more buildings, a player might, try to come back to Chundrake here at the last minute to get some extra renown. So, and, if you have some extra money at the end of the game, each coin you have at the end of the game is an additional renown. So them visiting is going to give you some extra points at the end of the game anyway. So there's some pluses to being the player who controls Chundrake. Okay, so here we have Krask. When you visit Krask, it has a bed, so you're going to obviously rest. But when you visit Krask, you can either choose to gain a wood or a fish. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You may or may not visit this isle very often. Maybe not at all. Who knows? Because, there's other ways you can get fish. Other ways you can get wood, and a lot more wood, and a lot more fish. So this is an isle that's probably not going to get visited very often. And so therefore, a player who chooses to start at this port here may not be getting their money's worth for controlling this location. But if you're afraid of somebody taking your isle away from you because they're going to attack you, they most likely won't attack this port town. Now, of course, it's hard to attack port towns controlled by another player, and we'll talk about that later, but they will probably not come after you on Krask because there's better port towns to basically take over anyways. But this is one they would probably not visit because of that. Okay, we still have one more port town. Okay, so here we have Cirsica. When you visit Cirsica, obviously you have the bed, so you can rest your crew members here. But then you also can trade in a book here for influence. For every book you trade in, you can get influence. So that's really, really cool. That there's another thing you can do with books is you can trade them in for influence instead of renown. So this is something that might be done a couple of times as well, depending on if a player wants renown or influence so they can take over using diplomacy, take over more isles. So Cirsica, Chundrake are definitely going to be the 2 isles that get visited the most by all players, while Marhaven here and Krask probably won't get visited by other players anytime soon. So if you don't want to be attacked a lot, or should I say you don't want your isle being taken over, you should probably place your ship and your color marker either on Marhaven or Krask. Those are the 2 best options for players that way. Because if you do put them at the other location, you are definitely going to get some company. You're definitely going to get some money possibly for visits, but you could also get attacked as well, which, is good for your opponents, but not really good for you. Okay, so we've talked about all of the different types of things that's going to happen when you visit an isle. But there's still lots more to talk about. So in the next video, we're going to talk about attacking in more depth and detail. There's still a lot to talk about just for simply attacking a player. And you're not really attacking a player in this game, but you're attacking an isle.